Thank you. We move to agenda item 6, report on the activities of the independent units. So the board has before it the following reports of the independent units. Document GCF B25 Inf 01 entitled Report on the Activities of the Information Appeals Panel. Document GCF B25 Inf 02 entitled Annual Report of the Independent Evaluation Unit. Document GCF B25 Inf 03 entitled Report on the Activities of the Independent Redress Mechanism. Document GCF B25 Inf 08 entitled 2019 Independent Redress Mechanism Annual Report. And document GCF B25 Inf 10 entitled Report on the Activities of the Independent Integrity Unit. I am going to now invite Joe Puri to take the floor for the Independent Evaluation Unit to give us a brief overview of their report. Just while that is getting set up, I'm also going to let people know that we will then play a video recording by Lalanath De Silva introducing the report of the IRM. Ibrahim Pan, head of the IIU, regrets not being able to join B25, but we will collect any comments you may have on the IIU report and transmit that. Joe, I believe you're ready now. I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. It's really a privilege for me to be here in front of all of you. Also, congratulations to all of the new board members as well as the alternate board members. And just as a reminder, but also for the edification of the new members that are here, as well as members of the GCF ecosystem who may not be aware of the IEU. The IEU was asked at the sixth meeting of the board to report directly to the board on key activities that might help to inform decision-making, disseminate lessons learned, provide strategic guidance. It's also tasked to undertake periodic independent evaluations that inform objectively the effectiveness and efficiency of the fund and to provide evaluation reports to the COP and to the UNFCCC. Again, it's my huge privilege to be here today and to present to you the Independent Evaluation Unit's activity report for a 3-month period, which, as you know, has been mandated by the board to be provided by the IEU to the board at every board meeting. Just again as background, we have the IEU has 4 work streams. First is to produce high-quality evaluations and reviews. Second is to undertake advisory services, learning and capacity strengthening in the area of evaluations. The third is to promote uptake, communications and partnerships so that we stay relevant and useful for the fund and to the overall evaluation community as a whole. And last but not least, to really develop our core strength and to strengthen the IEU staff and its overall activities internally as well. So my very short presentation will give you an overview of our achievements, and really it's a huge testimony to the dedication, hard work of my staff and the team in Songdo, but now dispersed in over 10 locations for the work that they've done over not just the past 3-month period, but over the past 2.5 years. In 2019, Co-Chair, you'd note that the IEU was asked to undertake an evaluation of the GCF's country ownership approach. This was ready for B24, but we are going to be presenting it at this meeting. We also completed the evaluation of the GCF's environmental and social safeguards and management system, and again, we will be presenting the results of that and our recommendations emanating from that at this meeting. Our multi-year program on learning-oriented real-time impact assessment work, which helps projects and programs develop measurement systems, will continue in our 3rd year as well. And in our activity report, we have a very nice annex that I will draw your attention to, which lists some of the very intense activities that my staff and I have engaged in during this period. In 2020 and 21, we've been asked by the board to do a rapid assessment of the simplified approval process. And just to note that the overall assessment will be brought to the board at B26. We are also undertaking a synthesis of the GCF's accreditation process, which will also be brought to the board at B26. So it's a pretty intense half-year period for us already. As per the decision of the board, the IEU will be undertaking an evaluation of the GCF's investments in small island developing states, and we are essentially choreographing our evaluations and reviews so that you might not be overwhelmed, but we are also trying to stagger them so that they are in line with some of the key decisions that the board, as well as the actions that the Secretariat has to take. And this will be presented to the board at B27. Last but not least, we will undertake a review of the GCF's adaptation-related investments, which will be brought to the board at B28, because the calendar timeline for this is for it to finish at the end of 2020. We would, of course, like the opportunity to discuss with you, co-chairs and board members, as to how these timelines might run given our current crisis, and I'm hoping very much that we'll have the opportunity to do so as we go along. As part of our advisory services, learning and capacity strengthening workstream, co-chair, we've dedicated ourselves to building a culture of evidence and measurement. And in this, my staff have worked really hard to build capacity with projects in a variety of, accredited entities, as well as projects on the ground in Rwanda, Central America, South Africa, Bangladesh, and Guatemala. As part of this overall work, we are also dedicating ourselves to really be, as our terms of reference ask us to be, leaders in the space of climate change and evaluation. And a large part of our work has also been in trying to sensitize as well as to create greater awareness on the value of high-quality evidence that might help to inform action across different parts of the world and in developing countries. IEU's monthly lunch talks have become a standard part of the GCF schedule, and I'm really proud to say that I think they are looked at and they are welcomed by everyone, not just within GCF, but also from outside, and we invite global leaders to come and speak on issues related to climate change, development, and developing countries. As part of our overall mandate to stay at the forefront and at the cutting edge of theory as well as practice, my staff have also worked on developing and accumulating and consolidating evidence from other parts of the world about what we might learn so that we stand on the shoulders of others' mistakes, learn very quickly, and we are able to inform the fund, so to speak, on things that have been done, things that have not worked, and things that have worked, so that it helps the fund to learn in a strategic as well as nimble way. In contribution to this, then we worked on evidence gap maps related to forestry conservation, as well as climate change adaptation work. And I'm happy to talk about these in our bilateral conversations, should you have questions. As part of our third work stream, which is dedicated to thinking about uptake, we are really dedicated to thinking about quick, easy ways to understand what evaluation and review evidence is saying so that it can enhance learning, not just internally within the fund, but also externally. And we've used a variety of innovative methods, and I'm really hoping that you'll have a chance to pick up some of these and to run your phones over the QR codes that are on little pamphlets outside and to try and see as to how you could access not just our big reports that I know are large, but also our 2 pages and our 4 pages. And there are QR codes for those on our little leaflets that are outside, but they're also available in many other formats. We also have video presentations, etc. I'm also proud to say, Co-Chair, that the IEU's publications are now getting translated into Spanish and French and Arabic. And we are building non-financial MOUs with a whole variety of agencies as well as part of our mandate. Last but not least, and in testimony to the huge amount of work, again, that my staff are doing, we are dedicating ourselves to also building internal capacity. We've done training workshops in the past 3 months on data analysis and synthesis. We've drafted procedures and guidelines for the IEU's effective operations that I know are also being considered by the board, and our work on the evaluation policy of the GCF is ongoing. In terms of building and strengthening the IEU, I'm also proud to report that we hired a data and geographic information systems analyst in January of 2020, and we have a new communications and editing associate who's also here in the room, and so Yonji Kim is here, and we are in the process of hiring 2 additional positions as well. Last but not least, in terms of our expenditures and budget execution, I'm really proud to also present to you the fact that the IEU over 2019 successfully executed 95% of its overall budget. And this is, again, testimony to not just the hard work, but also the excellent planning of my staff and the ability to be able to deliver on time. With that, thank you so much.
So I'd like to thank colleagues for the reports of the independent units, and to the IEU and the IRM for the overviews of reports, noting the important role of the board with respect to the IEUs. I think it was important to go through those. I open the floor now for any questions or comments. Heike, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much also for the presentations and the important work of the independent units. We would like to raise a concern and raise a question regarding the report of the Independent Integrity Unit. We noticed with concern that the number of cases registered has increased sharply. And we would like to understand the causes for these cases, and also request the Secretariat to explain what measures might be already underway to deal with, especially with issues of staff misconduct. Thank you very much.
Wael, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Joe, for the presentation. I have maybe 3 or 4 points I'd just like to put on the table and maybe hear from you some comments. The IEU, of course, does valuable work and makes useful assessments. However, we've noted before, and we noted again, that this is all being done in the absence of clear procedures and guidelines for the operation of the unit. Therefore, under the current setup, the IEU is producing reports, and we note these reports, and potentially the work of the unit influences directly and sometimes indirectly the overall working and processes of the GCF. So I believe that for the sake of clarity and transparency, we need to better engage on the guidelines and operations of the IEU. That's the first point. The second, I think we would like to see more focus by the independent evaluation unit on the conceptual side, basically from our perspective, the rationale, the very rationale for the GCF, which is helping developing countries address the challenges of climate change and make their contributions to the global effort, both on the mitigation side and the adaptation side. So an assessment and looking into the core messaging and rationale for the GCF and how well it's delivering on that. Third, the issue of division of labor, basically between the IEU and the Secretariat. We know that the IEU is mandated to prepare evaluation policies, but perhaps more clarity for everyone, both the Secretariat and the IEU team, would be needed. Lastly, I think I noted in your presentation a reference to expenditures of up to, I think the figure was 95% of the budget. I don't know how to look at that figure, whether a big number is a good thing or not. I think maybe some details, maybe in the lines of what we heard in the latter presentation, would help us to see and evaluate really where the expenditure was and whether it was in the areas that we think are most needed. Thank you.
Thank you. I turn to Philip.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. I would add my comments to the one made by Helene earlier with regards to the report of the IIU, but we will not have an opportunity to speak on that particular issue. So I'm assuming that we'll get some more additional details other than what's in the report. And I'm a little concerned that, board members have very little time to read some of these documents. And when I look at the IRM report, for example, I can conclude only on the basis of the budget that there were no issues that they had to address because they didn't spend any money traveling anywhere. But I wish if it's possible for those essential points to be brought up in some sort of document early so that we don't have to necessarily dig through all the text to find out what's going on. The IIU has indicated that there are quite a few issues that came up in 2019 versus 2018, and the number is up to 40. But again, I'm not certain if we can have a discussion on something like that with the independent unit head not being here. But I do wish for that to happen at some point in time. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And members, we do note that given the extraordinary circumstances, we don't have all the heads of the independent units here, but please note that we are taking note of all the comments, and these will be transmitted and answers will be brought back to board members on any questions that are being raised today. Given that, Joe, you are here, I would like to turn to you for some brief comments on the questions posed to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair, and thank you so much, Ambassador Weil, for your questions. As usual, very eloquent. So let me, on the topic of guidelines and operational guidelines, as well as the division of labor, and I think I can sensibly group those 2 points together. On the guidelines, we have used what are the terms of reference of the IEU that were approved by the board at B06, as well as the terms of reference of the head of the independent unit, to put together guidelines as well as operational steps that in a document that was submitted to the co-chairs, and we are waiting for advice on that. But the second part of that response also is that our work on the evaluation policy of the GCF, which, as you rightly noted, is a responsibility, both the development as well as the updating of the evaluation policy is a responsibility of the IEU. And we've been working on this, I think this sort of precedes your time as well, Ambassador, but over the past 2.5 years, or so to speak. As of now, the status is something that we are waiting again for advice from the co-chairs, but we are also working pretty closely, I think, as per using the guidance provided by the board at the previous meeting. So at B24, the board noted that we would bring together with the Secretariat the evaluation policy to the board. We noted some absence of guidance on some issues, and now I think I can speak for Yannick and for myself, that we're working to try and see as to how we might forge a way forward. That is respectful and cognizant of the huge amount of responsibility that you lay upon this important function, as well as on the IEU and the Secretariat. On the conceptual side, agreed. I completely agree with you, actually. I think a part of the IEU's overall learning and accountability function, ask it to think exactly about things that are out of the box. So not only do we have to examine whether we as a fund are doing things right, but also whether we are doing the right things. And I think that's what you're challenging us to do. We did in the FPR, in the forward-looking performance review of the fund, do a lot of that out-of-the-box thinking. We hope it was useful for the board, as well as for the Secretariat, as well as for the wider climate change community. And in our evaluations for this year, we anticipate that a lot of that will be reflected as well. If you look at the country ownership evaluation, I'm hoping that you'll also see some of that in terms of the normative thinking that should go along a lot of the actions that the fund undertakes. On your last point, Ambassador, in terms of expenditures, I'm very happy to go over it as part of the report that we've provided. I do want to point out that in 2019, our overall budget was artificially divided into two parts, one that referred to the IEU's normal activities, but another part, subpart, that was for the FPR. And so the 95% disbursement rate refers to the overall $4.08 million. So the disbursement rate for the $4.8 million budget that the IEU had. From where I'm sitting, I think a higher number is good in terms of disbursement rates, but I'm very happy to be advised differently. I'm also happy to go over the expenditures that we are making and critical items. 97% of the expenditures of the budget that we'd allocated to staff has been spent. In terms of 94% on contractual services, and overall 93% of the outlay that was made for the FPR was dispersed as well. So I'm hoping this provides you with some information on some of the critical items that we think are important for the IEU, but I'm very happy to engage bilaterally as well, Ambassador. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further flags, I take it that the board is ready to take note of the reports of the independent units. The reports of the independent units are noted. Thank you.